of Revelation aside,
what he's saying is,
the main source of this idea comes from Matthew 28:20, where Jesus says, "I will be with you even to the end of the world." However, in the King James Version,
dude, I can't wait.
Is a mistranslation among many mistranslations. The actual word being used is eon, which means age. I will be with you even to the end of the age, which is true, as Jesus' solar Piscean personification will end when the sun enters the age of Aquarius. The entire concept of end times and the end of the world is a misinterpreted astrological allegory. Let's tell that to the approximately 100 million people in America who believe the end of the world is coming.
That looked like a penguin there for a second.
Jesus, being a literary and astrological hybrid, is most explicitly a plagiarization of the Egyptian sun god Horus. For example, inscribed about 3,500 years ago on the walls of the Temple of Luxor in Egypt are images of the the miracle conception, the birth, and the adoration of Horus. The images begin with Thoth announcing to the Virgin Isis that she will conceive Horus, then Neph, the Holy Ghost, impregnating the Virgin, and then the virgin birth and the adoration.
Ghost rape.
This is exactly the story of Jesus' miracle conception.
In fact,
the literary similarities between the Egyptian religion and the Christian religion are staggering.
Ghost seed. Okay, we get it. Lots of evidence and stuff.
And the plagiarism is continuous. The story of Noah and Noah's Ark
exactly. This is what I use against everyone.
The flood is ubiquitous throughout the ancient world, with over 200 cited claims in different periods and times. However, one need look no further for a pre-Christian source. Gilgamesh, written in 2600 BC. This story talks of a great flood commanded by God, an ark with saved animals upon it, and even the release and return of a dove, all held in common with the biblical story, among many other similarities. And then there is the plagiarized story of Moses. Upon Moses' birth, it is said that he was placed in a reed basket and set adrift in a river in order to avoid infanticide. He was later rescued by a daughter of royalty and raised by her as a prince.
You should have heard what they said on that server last night. There was this dude claiming that he had stood inside a rainbow and looked up inside it.
Sargon.
What?
You can't do that. A rainbow is light. You can't do that. Exactly. That's impossible. You can't do that.
You have to be about 400 feet up in the air to do that.
The lawgiver, the giver of the Ten Commandments, the Mosaic Law. However, the idea of a law being passed from God to a prophet up on a mountain is also very old.
Rainbows never hit the ground.
Moses is just another lawgiver in a long line of lawgivers in mythological history.
He is. He's full. And I'm like, you Christians, he is a liar. And he's like, you calling me a liar? You can believe what you want, but I'm a Christian, so I'm better than you.
Upon the laws of God were written. Manu, Minos, Mises, Moses. And as far as the Ten Commandments, they are taken outright from spell 125 in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. What the Book of the Dead phrased, I have not stolen, became thou shalt not steal. I have not killed, became thou shalt not kill. I have not told lies, became thou shalt not bear false witness, and so forth. In fact, the Egyptian religion is likely the primary foundational basis for the Judeo-Christian theology. Baptism, afterlife, final judgment, virgin birth, death and resurrection, crucifixion, the Ark of the Covenant, circumcision, saviors, Holy Communion, Great Flood, Easter, Christmas, Passover,
I just realized
are all attributes of Egyptian
there's a bunch of Christian innuendo in Halo. Oh my God!
Martyr, one of the first
that
Christian
just blew my brain.
Stop! I want to hear this.
Like, I'm not kidding.
When we say that He, Jesus Christ, our teacher, was produced without sexual union, was crucified and died and rose again, and ascended into heaven, we propound nothing different from what you believe regarding those who you esteem sons of Jupiter. In a different writing, Justin Martyr said, He was born of a virgin. Accept this in common with what you believe of Perseus. It's obvious that Justin and other early Christians knew how similar Christianity was to the pagan religions. However, Justin had a solution. As far as he was concerned, the devil did it. The devil had the foresight to come before Christ and create his characteristics in the pagan world.
Dude, that's...
He's jacking out.
Fundamentalist Christianity.
He's jacking out religious items.
People actually believe the world is
one devil, one
Shut up.
dick with many things in it.
I actually asked one of these guys, okay, dinosaur fossils. He says, dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith. I think God put you here to test my faith, dude.
Which way to the ark?
The Bible is nothing more than an astrotheological literary hybrid, just like nearly all religious myths before it. In fact, the aspect of transference of one character's attributes to a new character can be found within the book itself. In the Old Testament, there is the story of Joseph. Joseph was a prototype for Jesus. Joseph was born of a miracle birth. Jesus was born of a miracle birth. Joseph was of 12 brothers. Jesus had 12 disciples. Joseph was sold for 20 pieces of silver. Jesus was sold for 30 pieces of silver. Brother Judah suggests the sale of Joseph. Disciple Judas suggests the sale of Jesus. Joseph began his work at the age of 30. Jesus began his work at the age of 30. The parallels go on and on. Furthermore, is there any non-biblical historical evidence of any person living with the name Jesus, the son of Mary, who traveled about with 12 followers, healing people and the like? There are numerous historians who lived
It's like Snow White traveling with 12
or soon after the assumed life of Jesus. How many of these historians document this figure? Not one. However, to be fair, that doesn't mean defenders of the historical Jesus haven't claimed the contrary. 4 historians are typically referenced to justify Jesus' existence. Pliny the Younger, Suetonius, and Tacitus are the first 3. Each one of their entries consists of only a few sentences at best, and only refer to Christus or the Christ, which in fact is not a name but a title. It means the Anointed One. The 4th source is Josephus, and this source has been proven to be a forgery for hundreds of years. Sadly, it is still cited as truth. You would think that a guy who rose from the dead and ascended into heaven for all eyes to see and performed the wealth of miracles acclaimed to him would have made it into the historical record. It didn't, because once the evidence is weighed, there are very high odds that the figure known as Jesus did not even exist.
Owned.
Dude, I gotta show all my Christian friends this shit. We gotta get Valis to watch this.
We don't want to be unkind, but we want to be factual. We don't want to cause hurt feelings, but we want to be academically correct in what we understand and know to be true. Christianity
We actually do,
based
but
on truth.
not too much from Valis.
We find that Christianity was in fact nothing more than a Roman story, developed politically.
The reality is, Jesus was the solar deity of the Gnostic Christian sect. And like all other pagan gods, he was a mythical figure. It was the political establishment that sought to
Try and get a wave of this complete thing
social control.
and play it in-game in a Christian
By
area.
325 AD in Rome, Emperor Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea. It was during this meeting that the politically motivated Christian doctrines were established, and thus began a long
What about
history
explosions?
of Christian
We need the
bloodshed
explosion.
and spiritual fraud.
Well,
And for the next 16
those already
years,
happened in
the
the game.
Vatican maintained a political stranglehold on all of Europe.
I know.
Leading to such
Just
joyous
never. I'm not
periods
gonna
of the
record
Dark
it now.
Ages, along with
my
enlightenment
shit- my
events
mic will
such
sound
as the
like shit.
Crusades and the Inquisition.
Why is everyone fucking naked? Stop
Christianity, along
God.
with all other theistic belief systems, is the fraud of the age.
It's sealed
serves
as
to detach the
heyday.
species from the natural world, and likewise each other. It supports blind submission to authority.